figure out how to get the boat running, and luckily his older brother Jim was there and was able to configure a little outboard motor that got them in about 1 mile per hour and got them back to shore safely. But he loved to fish, and he loved sharing that knowledge and passing that knowledge on. It's something that went down from generation to myself. It's my favorite activity, and I can say I learned many of those skills from him. And I think I taught him a few things or two. I think I might have even surpassed him at some point. Bill Blair, his father, ran an auto shop with his partner, and he had that real positive entrepreneurial male role model. Jan went to Loma Linda School and then later North High School, where he played basketball and ran track, and was proudly voted the best looking student in his class. I think that was his ultimate moment. We actually have the certificate over there to prove it. So if you want to see a living embodiment of my dad's vanity, it's right there on the table. He later went on to attend Phoenix College and ASU, where he continued to add to his long list of lifelong friends, Alan, Billy, Richard, and many others that became close friends that he was still friends with, to his last day. As time went on, he kind of became your classic hippie as the 70s progressed. And working in a shop that eventually focused on VWs, it was really a natural fit for him. And my dad got to travel a lot too, mainly in North America, but he would tell me many times of the trips he went on and the things he experienced, like the amazing fireworks shows in Vancouver, the beauty of Lake Jenny that reflects the Grand Teton Mountains, the majesty of the animals within Yellowstone Park, and the fire opals of Mexico. After his father passed, he took over the family business, and that's when he really became Jan, the VW man. He was a VW expert if there ever was one. And again, he learned what he took from his father, but took it to the next level. Same thing with building cars and racing cars. Growing up, we got to spend a lot of time at the race car track, the sand drags. It was really a passion of his, and he really became one of the top VW racers out there. As time went on, he got married my mother Christine, had me, and then moved to a couple houses in downtown Phoenix. The house that I grew up in, he actually built on some of the additions with his bare hands, and I always really respected that. I mean, it was so funny because things around the house were always so paper clipped and bubble gummed together, but the guy could build things from scratch, so it was kind of the irony of Jan. But he was really good at problem solving. More times than I can count, he got me out of a jam. And not that he dropped what he was doing and came to get me, but he helped me figure out how to solve those problems by push starting cars. These guys over here know what it's like to push start a Volkswagen and jump in it as it's moving down the street. Or even me and Miguel, we drove that one time through South Phoenix at about 10 miles an hour in second gear because the clutch cable broke or something, right? And the truth is, he was just a really cool dad. I'm a really lucky guy, and being a race car driver, being president of a VW club, we'd be out in the world at a restaurant or something, and people would stop us and just strike up a conversation with him, and again, the storytelling, talking about old stories that they had shooting the shit down at Blair and Son Auto Parts or out at the track or something, and many times people would look me right in the face and say, dude, your dad knows more about VWs than anyone. And that was kind of cool, right? Like, he had his niche, and he was an expert at that. Blair and Son really kind of turned into this I don't want to say a mecca, but like this place where VW people from all different backgrounds, literally all over the world, would come and just hang out and talk Volkswagens, right? You didn't have to talk about politics or current events, and I guarantee he didn't want to hear what you had to say about those things anyways, but he really liked just making that comforting place. And I know many people here will remember him, as the guy behind that grimy counter, sharing his VW expertise. And he shared that information freely. My dad wasn't a particularly religious person or spiritual person, but he believed in treating people right. And I got my values from him, and so I feel very thankful for that. There's a ton of people that he gave that advice to and saved a ton of time, a ton of money, and a ton of headache so that we're trying to fix their Volkswagens or solve their problems. But he went even further. There was a lot of people that he helped out that were in dire need, whether they be stuck on the side of the road, or bailing people out of jail. There was more than a couple people he bailed out of jail, or giving someone a job that no one else would hire them, whether they be too young or maybe they had a prison record or something. My dad would give him a chance, and he also, let many people come and stay with him when they were down on their luck. I really respect that. So there's a lot of people here, I think, that know that personally. You know, he was a little bit rough around the edges, but you know, he was always open and honest. My dad wasn't the kind of guy that would, you know, sugarcoat things or beat around the bush. And no pretense, very straightforward. And I'm the same way, so I know I got a lot of that from him. He was also a really lucky guy too. Like if you were like doing a raffle or something, he's the guy you wanted holding your raffle ticket. Once he actually won the ultimate garage contest from KSLX. And there's a whole story around that where he won a car and some money. He almost won a house. And if you want to hear that story, I'll tell you that story. But I asked him, I was like, if you'd won that house, would you have given me the house? He's like, oh, no way, I'm going to sell that and make some money. Right? But again, just being totally honest, right? And I feel lucky because I had both a really good father-son relationship with him, and then later in life, when I moved in with him when I was, you know, kind of again in college and needed a place to stay, he let me move back in with him. And so I was able to develop that kind of friend-like relationship with him as well that I know a lot of people don't get to have with their parents. So we used to go to parties, we used to go to concerts, we saw B.B. King and Buddy Guy and a bunch of great bands right here on this stage together. And I'm not sure how many people out there that can say they've done whippets with their dad, but like, I'm one of them, right? In recent years, if you're a regular here, you saw him here, right? This was his hangout. This is the place he loved most. He was here probably at least every other night, if not more frequently. He loved music, he really loved the blues, and he was a big champion of the bands that would come through here. And so he would often regale me of stories of the classic rock bands that he got to see in his youth, like Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix, of course Alice Cooper. And you know, those were always really cool stories to hear because these are all bands that I love too. But he would also still keep me in the loop of the blues bands that were on the national circuit, right? And I would do the same thing and try to, you know, share some of the metal bands or something that I thought he might like, even though he probably didn't. But he was a really good father, and he was an even better grandfather to my two kids, Marley and Hendrix. He always treated my wife, Lisa, with respect and treated her like a daughter, and so I appreciated that. And he really loved those kids immensely. He really took to the grandfather role. He would play dolls and do Legos and chase those kids around. He'd come over once a week and watch them just so we could do laundry and, you know, get a little free time. And so I had like a lifetime of memories, and so I feel really grateful for that. I do feel bad though that, you know, my kids aren't going to have as many memories as we had hoped. My daughter is 4, and so she had a few good years, but my son is only 1, and unfortunately I don't think he'll remember those. But I can tell right now my son is already a car guy. Like when cars drive by, like you can tell he's got that Blair gene, which skipped a generation with me, by the way. But Jan, unfortunately, passed from this world to the next on June 1st, in his home peacefully and asleep. And he then joined his parents, as well as his brothers Jim and Chuck in the afterlife. And we take comfort in knowing that he lived an amazing life. He had a great time. He was always about having fun. Like he didn't like the drama. He just wanted to have a good time. He wanted other people to have a good time too. And so we're thankful that he passed peacefully and he lived, you know, awesomely. We're going to miss his presence. We're going to miss his advice, his mustache, his interesting vehicular creations. We're going to miss him carving up the Thanksgiving or Christmas turkey or ham. We're going to miss him carving up the dance floor right here. And of course, we're going to miss his stories. So we'd like to invite anyone else that would like to come up and, you know, say a few words or share a story. We'll leave the mic open so that you can tell us some of those stories that you might have had about Jan. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it for coming. My dad's best friend growing up on Osborne was Mr. Michael Bruce here, so Michael wanted to come up and say a few words.
Oh, well, Jan was, my first recollection of Jan was the first grade in Loma Linda, and we had, our homeroom was Mrs. Rex Road. It was Jan and I, and then we became friends with another kid that lived in the neighborhood, Michael Cross, and by the time we were in the 3rd grade, the school had to separate us into separate classes because we caused so much trouble. You know, it was harmless, you know, back then, thinking how things are today. But Jan, he was a great guy. I mean, he's so matter of fact, so easygoing. You know, he never got too overly emotional. But, you know, he was great. And later on, when we were in Cub Scouts, my mother was the den mother. We lived on Flower Street, right 2 lots to the west of the Blairs on Osborne. And so we'd make everything out of popsicle sticks you can imagine, go to the state fair and, you know, sell them to raise money for the Cub Scouts. But then I remember, I guess it was a time, maybe The Adventures of Robin Hood, and I was into archery, so we were playing around the backyard, and I was like, oh, sorry, and there, you know, it wasn't like a really sharp arrow, but it made a dent in his leg, and it bled. So, you know, he was okay, and I saw him the next day. But Chuck, we used to, next door neighbors was kind of a common field in a house there, and they had an old chicken shed there, and I remember I was walking around, and Chuck's up on the, I jumped down and he goes, "Hey Michael," and he throws a brick and hits me in the stomach. I guess that was payback. But we were always into something. He was such a good friend. I remember going down to his dad's shop. He was always Mr. Blair to me, you know, and I'd go over when they'd come back from Choya Bay and help clean fish and whatever. And Soapbox Derby was coming up, so we went down to the shop, and I'm looking at these soapboxes, and they're like, wow, what are these, Porsche or what? You know, they were just like, stood just out from the rest of the crowd so much that the judges were like going, you sure you made this yourself, right? And at least when I was with him, Chuck, I think Chuck made it to semifinals here in Arizona. They used to block off McDowell at the Papago Park area and come right down there by the Armory. That was so cool. So I got to experience a lot of things with Chuck and Jan, and I never got to really know Jim because he was so much older. But the Blairs were always nice to me. I'd come over and hang out, and I remember when Chuck would put time for bedtime, he had this habit of rocking his head back and forth like this. And I said, "What's your name, Chuck?" He goes, "Chucky Jiggers, Charles Gibson Blair." And he put himself to sleep. I don't know how he did it, but anyway. So unfortunately, after the 3rd grade, we started to grow apart because, you know, as a matter of fact, Mike Cross's mother and Jan's mother, Ruth, held them back a year. I don't know why, but I went on, and so I was a year ahead of them, so we had different friends. But we'd always see one another, you know, North High, and it was great having them as being neighbors, because we grew up doing the things that, you know, Davy Crockett and Walt Disney and all. It was all happening, and I remember later we used to go down to Choya Bay and to the little place next to the cantina down there and get shit-faced. I remember one night I asked this girl, she came with me, and we're so drunk, she's walking, and I said, "Wait a minute, come back," and she just walked off the porch and face plant. But and our grade school PE teacher, Mr. McKenzie, had a place down there, and we'd see him, and they had so much going on all the time. It was great. I remember when I was on the road with the Cooper band in Chicago area, here comes Mrs. Blair walking down. She goes, "Michael!" It was in their women's club. I'm not sure what the name of it was, but she gave me a big hug, and it was really nice. And you know, I wish I could have had more time with Jan later on in my adult life. But we'd see one another from time to time, and of course, I would always go down to Chuck, and he'd drill my cavities and all that. But they were a wonderful family. They really lived life, and they really loved life, and they were great. I'll miss them a lot, and we love Jan. Thank you.
My name is Deena, and Jan came here all the time dancing, and me and all our friends, we would dance with him. And I just wanted to share one little thing with you that we all love about Jan. we would dance and dance and dance and dance and dance and dance. And we'd get so tired, we'd go outside and have to sit down and have some water or whatever. But Jan, he would come outside and join us, but he wouldn't join us sitting down drinking. He would dance with his shadow. Turn around, and there he is. And so I want everybody to remember, if you see your shadow, dance with it. Love you, Jan.
Hi everybody, my name is Jason Blair. I was Chuck Blair's son. So we definitely, me, Jan, and my dad definitely had some adventures down in Mexico, to say the least. Yeah, so you know, my dad was really big into fishing, and so was Jan. So when I was about 8, 10, 12 years old, I used to go out with them from 5 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. And we used to do the fishing derbies big time down there, and I remember us going out to the dunes about 30 miles out during the fishing derby in Thanksgiving weekend. And it was cold, the water was cold. And we were out there and we were catching fish, and it started getting a little windy. And my dad's like, we'll stay out a little bit longer, we're catching fish, it's a big weekend. And Jan's like, I don't know, man, it's getting a little rough here, maybe we should go home. And my dad, shut up, we're fine. And so anyway, I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, it's getting a little rough too. So anyway, we got a boat with us, he'll take care of us. It was a bigger boat, I don't know if you guys know, but we had like a little Ponga boat. So it only rose about a foot off the water, and stuff. This guy had this nice old cabin cuddy, big boat and stuff. And, yeah, he was gonna break the waves for us going back in. Well, the guy just kept going and left us. So he's about 3 to 4 miles ahead of us, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't good at all. And so anyway, we can't see land. Waves are about 7, 8 feet tall. They're coming in the boat. We've got about 10 grouper, pinto, sardinero, flounder. They're swimming in the back of our boat at this point. That's how much water's in there. And I'm a little nervous, and I'm going to Jan. I'm like, Jan, do you think we're gonna make it back alive? And he goes, I don't know, man. I'll be honest, I really don't know. I was like, that's a 10-year-old. You don't want to hear that. As a 10-year-old, you're like, oh my God, this is not what I want to hear. I want to hear like, we'll be all right, we'll be all right. And then I heard my dad at one point, get the buckets and start bailing. And I'm like, oh my God, so we're bailing, and this is why I see hammerhead sharks riding the waves by us. I'm like, that's like a 10-foot long shark coming right by us and stuff. And I felt like he got circling around waiting for us to sink and stuff, like, all right guys, I'm waiting here, but But I just never forget that when I was like in just total fear, and they're just soaking wet, and Jan just goes, I don't know, man, I don't think we're gonna make it. So that was a good story for me and Jan. And I have another good one. One time, Jan used to bring his buggy down there, his little sand rail, and Jan was asleep, and my dad's like, hey kids, you guys want to go on Jan's sand rail? I'm like, well, Dad, should we ask Jan if we could? That's okay, he won't mind. So we take it out, we go across over to Black Mountain over there, and my dad's finding it pretty hard. I'm going, oh, Dad, you're kind of acting like this is yours, but okay. All right, so then we go over to Competition Hill, and we're going down the hill, and you never want to turn midway up the hill and try to go back up, and that's a lot of stress on the engine. Yeah, so my dad, Jan has his street tires on, he doesn't even have paddle tires on, so my dad turns around, turbo kicks in, it's spinning, we start making it up there slowly but surely. All this smoke just starts coming out the back, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then we go home, and we immediately come home after that, and my dad just comes home, and he goes, yeah, Jen, I don't know something happened with your engine. We were just driving down the street, and I just started smoking. And I was like, as a kid, I was like, Dad, that really shut up, I'm going to tell Jan what happened and stuff. But luckily, it was just the pump, the oil hose that came loose, and it was just leaking on the engine. But Jan was a very laid-back guy, to say the least, because there was a couple of situations where I thought, man, if it was my dad that happened, oh, it would have got ugly. Jan, you're right. He was just an amazingly low-key, mellow guy. I mean, a lot of us, we have family that have problems, and we get in arguments with uncles, relatives, all that. I can't recall one time where I ever had to disagree with Jan, and I was around him a lot. So that says a lot, because I know my dad, he definitely took a lot of their disagreements, So yeah, Jan was an amazing man. It really hurt when I heard that he passed away and all that. But as any of you guys know, my dad, he definitely didn't go out the same way. So I guess looking at it, like at least he went away peacefully rather than what my dad had to go through, because that was kind of rough for us last summer. It really was. So I guess looking at it like that, at least he went out that way. I honestly wouldn't mind going out that way either, just in my sleep. It makes it a lot easier. But yeah, he was a great guy. I mean, I'm gonna miss him. And Kyle, like I said, thanks for everything here. This has been amazing and stuff. Appreciate it. Like, and yeah, I mean, this has been a great event. That's obviously great to see how many people out here that cared for Jan, and he was obviously an amazing person. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Jason, and thanks for coming out on your birthday too. It's not the most joyous reason. Let's give buy a drink for that guy too. If anybody does want some drinks, see me and my wife Lisa. We'll buy you a drink as well. I'll leave it up in here for a little bit longer if anybody else wants to say a couple last words. If it stays up here quiet, I'll just turn the music back on. But we're here to have a good time tonight. The point is to have this a celebration. Jan wouldn't want us, being mopey or sad. He'd want us to have a good time. And I want to see some people dancing out there. That's what he'd want to see first and foremost.